never think your health is in your hands. It's in His. And never think that your future is in your hands. Because man is fragile, and that's how it is. Bismillah wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillah. A'udhu billahi al-azim wa biwajhihi al-kareem wa sultanihi al-qadeem min ash-shaytan ar-rajim. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Man is fragile, and blessings are easy to ignore. These are two lessons I learned one Australian summer's day 4 years ago. At the age of 21, entering my final year of civil engineering at college, on a train heading to a small project management firm. I had no idea I'd be spending that night in hospital. I had no idea I'd be tested with adversity and patience, and I'd be worrying my parents throughout that whole day. It was a day and night. My right lung started collapsing all by itself. Subhanallah wa Allahu Akbar. You see, I didn't know the pain I suddenly felt in my right shoulder was anything serious that morning. Didn't know that I'd be squirming in my seat at work until noon. Didn't know that I'd have to climb 3 flights of stairs for the first time ever because the building's elevator wasn't working that morning. I had little idea I'd leave the office in search of a doctor's office and spend the next 30 minutes in a shopping mall, searching for it in the city. And I didn't know that I would be sobbing in front of the doctor shortly after finding him. By that time it was difficult to walk, difficult to breathe. Too much was wrong and it all sort of happened too fast. After hyperventilating, they called the ambulance and the paramedics actually came out and saw me. They asked whether I felt sore. I said yes. They figured that it was because of my martial arts training the previous night. So they said that was okay, and they left. MashaAllah, at how the doctor on a whim recommended a chest x-ray, just for his peace of mind. So I made it to the x-ray place and then travelled back to the doctor. He told me that there was a hole spontaneously forming in my right lung. So the air was actually escaping my lung and into my chest. And the resulting outside air pressure was collapsing it. And there was nothing I actually did to cause it. We think our health is in our hands. So I travelled to the hospital, walking for what seemed miles to the emergency ward, and then to the queue to see the nurse. I still remember the 2 people in front of me actually. The first, a young woman telling of some shoulder pain, and the next, a grown man complaining that he was under too much stress. I still remember that, thinking stress, and I'm in this condition. I was about to punch him in the face. Instead, alhamdulillah, I kept patience. I regulated my breathing. It was actually a scary thing to do as well, because I knew something was wrong with me. I had one of the most critical conditions of my life. Alhamdulillah, it wasn't worse. Many people are, alhamdulillah for that, but it was still frightening to me. So I sat there, regulated my breathing, and then it was my turn. So I got up to the window and I was tested again because the nurse shut the window and then went off for a small break. When she returned, and after I explained everything, my x-ray in my hands, she said I'd be quickly registered and then straight away admitted into the hospital. So I felt good, for the first time that day things were working out. I was going to get taken care of. And then the registration clerk, who was another woman, she insisted I wait my turn in getting registered. So there I was, being patient again. And then the nurse sort of saw me. She took things in her own hands, grabbed me by the hand, and just put me straight into the hospital, straight into the ward. I was finally x-rayed and then given some oxygen to breathe for a while. 5 hours passed and they x-rayed me again. My lung went from 20% collapsed to 35% collapsed. So the doctors knew that they had to do something, they had to operate. And I knew that there was no way I was going to hide this from my parents any longer. Yeah, I thought that I could not tell them. I could get away with it. I didn't want to worry them. I didn't mind getting home, getting yelled at for being late. And that would be it. And I would keep this to myself. And yes, I'm still admonished by my friends, by my family, for not telling them. And that I was wrong in doing this. Anyway, khair. The local operation actually went well, eventually. They basically inserted a tube in my chest from the side of my ribcage and waited for the air to come out. I was awake during all of this. They gave me some local anesthetic and they told me I wouldn't feel a thing. Yeah, I beg to differ. I then went through one of my final tests of patience when I heard during the operation they noted aloud that the air wasn't aspirating from the tube properly. The air wasn't coming out properly. Allahu Akbar. It was at that time I made some of the most heartfelt dua I've ever made in my life. Alhamdulillah, my prayers were answered and the operation went well. That night, my parents visited me, and I actually remember hiding some of the blood that I had around my chest from my mother. I took the gown and sort of covered my shoulder with it. They eventually left, so my family eventually left, and my night began. And it was one of the most memorable nights I've ever had in my life. I don't remember how I got to sleep. I remember being awake after that long day at 3 a.m. I remember trying to fall asleep, intaking some air, getting a shot of pain, and then waking up again. I remember feeling powerless. The sleep that I so longed for was outside of my power. We think our future is in our hands. It's not, it's in His. I left the hospital the next day, very sober, recovering. But do you remember the 2 lessons I learnt? I breathe now, and I feel no pain, and I took that for granted. Even our hearts beat in our chest and we don't feel it, and some of us take that for granted. Subhanallah ta'ala, without the physical peace that we are blessed with to feel in our chests, it would be a huge difficulty to feel peace anywhere else, and in any other form. I was a healthy 21-year-old black belt in martial arts. I was on my way to work experience. I was in my last year of college, and just like that, I'm hospitalized. We can't afford to be arrogant, to think that we can control our lives, and we lead them totally and absolutely. Why? Because man is fragile, and that's how it is. Thank you for listening. Jazakumullahu khair, and assalamu alaikum.